Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. Today we honor International Women's Day. We say to women everywhere, we see you.
Women who must search elsewhere to find images and stories of intelligence, beauty, and promise that are not white or thin or wealthy. Women who walk for miles every day so their families can have water.
Women finding themselves anew after brutal breakups, who really and truly are enjoying being single, no matter how many times their friends or coworkers or cousins say, "I'd love to set you up with a friend of mine." Women not paid nearly enough for the hours they have spent cleaning toilets, wiping up spilled coffee and vomit, scraping gum from under chairs.
Women who have just found out they're pregnant and have never felt more alone. Women of color working in white spaces.
Women holding their babies for the first time, seeing nothing but the vulnerable, unfamiliar beauty in their arms. Women in love with other women.
Women who fear deportation, who linger at the door after tucking their children in at night, trying to memorize the curve of the child's face, the sound of their voice, just in case. Trans women, stepping outside for the first time as their true selves, feeling a pang of fear and the thrill of freedom.
Women who have been told you cannot have children, who feel loss and longing every time they see pregnant women, babies, and cute children seemingly everywhere they go. Women relearning the strength and beauty of their minds and bodies after years of physical and mental abuse.
Butch, femme, queer, poor, rich, immigrant, working, stay at home, abled and disabled. We cannot speak for all of you, there being no one way to be a woman.
We gather to say, we see you, to honor the struggle that is being a woman within systems of governance and law, company cultures, and social expectations established by men.
We see you.
We gather to celebrate what love and wisdom you have brought into the world. Welcome members, welcome guests, welcome all. As we prepare to sing, please turn and greet the people around you.
We light our chalice this morning in honor of the women who have come before us and those who will follow after us.
Our reading this morning is an excerpt from a poem by Adrienne Rich entitled Natural Resources. The cage drops into the dark. The routine of life goes on. A woman turns a doorknob, but so slowly, so quietly that no one wakes. And it is she alone who gazes into the darkness, into the bedrooms, who ascertains how they sleep, who needs her touch, what window blows the ice of February into the room, and who must be protected. It is only she who sees, who was trained to see.
Good morning. My name is Amelia Hagan. As you may know, our topic for today's service is nurture, specifically the ways in which women across history have been forced into nurturing roles, both unwanted and wanted. There is an unimaginable power in nurturing. For centuries, women were the ones cooking, cleaning, mending, pacifying, soothing, and so much more. The quiet courage that is required to rise each morning and commit yourself to a largely thankless work is breathtaking. When women enter professional environments, they continue to fight off the expectations centuries of oppression have placed upon them. They aren't taken seriously in college science and math classes. They take decisive action in the workplace and are labeled mean or hard to work with. They are asked, well, what about your career when you have children? These transgressions don't just happen in corporate environments. They happen in schools too. I am currently enrolled in an advanced placement government class. My teacher constantly jokes about how women don't deserve the right to vote and should act like they did before the turn of the century and submit. When my female classmate and I ask him to stop, that these jokes are marginalizing and unfunny, we are too sensitive and need to let it go. I have heard it said, sometimes by members of this congregation, a phrase along the lines of, well, sure, sexism exists, but I am not a sexist. And I would say that for the most part, that is true. This congregation has been a welcoming home to me for nearly a decade. However, we are still guilty of discrimination, even when it's not intentional. When you live and participate in a society that systematically oppresses and undermines women and people of color, you unwittingly contribute to that systematic oppression. And in that way, we are all guilty of being racist, sexist, ableist, ageist, transphobic, xenophobic, and so much more. We are all a part of this system, and those of us who are least affected by this oppression have the moral and ethical responsibility to advocate for those who are most affected. When the woman in the staff meeting continually gets interrupted by her male coworkers, stand up for her. When your black coworker is asked to get rid of her dreadlocks because they are dirty or distracting, stand up for her. When the transgender woman uses the women's restroom and is heckled, stand up for her. When you hear your daughter being told, boys don't like smart girls, just as I was told so many years ago, stand up for her. It is our duty to nurture community and prevent injustice. We must reject the helpless, meek aspects of nurturing that allow for the continuation of systematic oppression. We must accept the gentle, compassionate, caring aspects of nurture and employ them to help the females in our lives in whatever capacity that may be. Use the capacity to nurture, not to force women and girls into boxes, but to give them opportunities to be the very best that they can be. Thank you.
Speaking from the older generation of us service leaders today, I'm going to tell you about some of my experiences with gender discrimination, the opposite of nurturing, way back in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Before I graduated from high school, I was looking for places to go to college. I lived in Virginia, and my older brother had gone to the University of Virginia, so I would have loved to go there. But even though I was my class's valedictorian, I couldn't go to UVA. Why? Because I was female. And the only program where they accepted women was in a stereotypically nurturing all-female major, nursing. But I didn't want to be a nurse. So beautiful, prestigious UVA was sadly out of the question for me. When I did go to college, I knew a guy named Bill Gay. His roommate told him, "You shouldn't date Carol Stewart because she's smart." Women were not supposed to be smarter or better in anything really than a guy, especially someone she was dating. Thank goodness Bill Gay was not daunted by that dire warning, and he is now my husband of 47 years. During my career days, I worked for 15 years in a corporation. I was in a fairly large work group most of the time, and when we had staff meetings, even though I was an informal leader in the group, I found it hard to be heard. I would present an idea and people would nod and then let it drop without much consideration. But when one of the men on the staff said something close to what I was proposing, they would acknowledge his idea as a really good one. Finding my voice and having it heard was hard to do back then, and from what Amelia says, it's still hard to do now. I did find my voice, though, during the last 12 years of my career when I taught women's studies at UNC Charlotte. Finally, in my workplace, I got to say my political beliefs out loud. Not only did I get to shake up my students with the news that no, women's equality isn't here yet, it's not even close, but I was also able to nurture several hundred young women during those years I taught. I was privileged to enable them to see that their appearance was just fine, even if they didn't look like the images of ideal beauty everywhere in the media. I got to help them prepare themselves to recognize and oppose gender discrimination wherever they could. Finally, I felt heard.
was a swimmer in college, in fact, most of my life. And though we competed separately, men and women trained together. We would swim for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, lift weights together, run together. And one afternoon at practice, my friend Alex shared that he was feeling exhausted. He'd been sick and he was still under the weather. As practice went on, I was swimming faster than Alex, and so I kept catching up to him, and as is customary in the swimming world, I would tap his feet to help him acknowledge that I was about to pass. After about the third time I tapped his feet and passed, my coach motioned for me to get out of the water. He asked me how I thought it made Alex feel to have me pass him. I stuttered compliantly something about how it probably didn't feel very good to be passed at practice. My coach explained that Alex had had a hard week, and being passed by me, he didn't say by a girl, but I filled in the missing words in my head as you do, like a sexist Mad Lib. Alex was having a tough week, and my passing him was not good for his confidence. And he was one of our top sprinters. And my coach wanted me to understand how important confidence was to sprinters. How they have to explode off the block, keep their head in the race the entire time, as if I didn't know. My coach did not care, obviously, that I was also training for the conference championships, and he was holding me back from training at my best, pushing myself to the limit so I could perform at my best when the time came. I quickly slipped back into the familiarity of my social conditioning and apologized to my coach. I understood, though I had forgotten in the heat of practice. When it came to my male teammates, I was in a supporting role. My very rare, by the way, competitiveness was not appropriate in this setting. What my teammate needed from me was to be compassionate, caring, gentle with his confidence, moving my own needs out of the way to be sure he was cared for, to be sure he could be his best. Alex was a good teammate, and we joked later about that practice, but neither of us questioned our coach. We both knew it wasn't right. And as uncomfortable as it was, in another way, it was comfortable for both of us. We had been asked again to play familiar roles in a gender script that has been handed down for generations. In the early 1700s, there was a pocket-sized book, I assume so that you could carry it with you everywhere, that was widely read in the American colonies called Advice to a Daughter, which instructed parents and teachers to give this advice to young girls. You must first lay it down for a foundation in general that there is inequality in the sexes, and that for the better economy of the world, the men who were to be the lawgivers have the larger share of reason bestowed upon them, by which means your sex, the female sex, is the better prepared for the compliance that is necessary for the performance of those duties most properly assigned to you. Women wanteth men's reason for your conduct, and our strength for your protection. Men wanteth your gentleness to soften and to entertain us. While we know that men are just as capable of caring for others as women, women are groomed from an early age to nurture, to understand ourselves as the people best suited to be gentle, considerate, kind, the people best suited for providing comfort to others. In a poem published in 1992 called What I Learned from My Mother, Julia Kasdorf writes, "I learned from my mother how to love the living, to have plenty of vases on hand in case you had to rush to the hospital with peonies cut from the lawn, black ants still stuck to the buds. I learned to save jars large enough to hold fruit salad for a whole grieving household. I learned to believe I had the power to ease awful pains materially like an angel. I learned to create from another's suffering my own usefulness. And once you know how to do this, you can never refuse. To every house you enter, you must offer healing. A chocolate cake you baked yourself, the blessing of your voice, your chaste touch. While we know that men are just as capable of caring for others, women are groomed from an early age to nurture, to understand ourselves as the people best suited to be gentle and patient and accommodating. That we know that men are just as capable of mastering patience and gentleness, it's women who receive the message that our lives will be weighed and measured by our ability to care for others, valued by the degree we can encourage and support other human beings. Women are supposed to understand that the burden and joy of nurturing belongs primarily to us at home and at work. Though women are taught to understand that our worth comes from nurturing, we also receive clear signals that what is valued most about us isn't all that valued in our society. We receive clear signals as women that what we are taught to value most about ourselves is that which is undervalued by our society. These signals are and always have been loudest and clearest for women of color, for immigrant women. Evelyn Koch was an African-American single mother of 5 who worked for 2 decades taking care of people in need in their homes, bathing, cooking, dressing them, keeping track of their medications. Koch regularly worked 70 hours a week for the poverty wages of $7 an hour, and often worked 3 consecutive 24-hour shifts in a row. The New York Times wrote in Evelyn Koch's obituary, "For years, Ms. Koch quietly grumbled and then quite uncharacteristically rebelled." Koch's rebellion was to sue to reverse federal labor regulations so that home care agencies would pay overtime. The Supreme Court unanimously rejected her claims. After all, domestic workers are excluded from the definition of employee under the National Labor Relations Act, the Social Security Act, and are excluded from the protections of the Occupational Safety and Health act. What message do women of color or the majority immigrant women who hold jobs as domestic workers, what message do they receive from such legal decisions? Toward the end of her life, Koch stopped working after a car accident and later kidney failure. While in a wheelchair due to her health complications, it was hard to do things she had needed to do around the house. Hard to make herself food, hard to take a bath or get dressed. But of course, she was never able to afford a home health aide to help care for her. Anna Julia Cooper was born into slavery here in North Carolina. And in the decades after the Civil War, Cooper traveled the country and gave lectures, often addressing how the United States might heal itself from its long legacy of enslaving other human beings. In 1893, Cooper appeared before the World's Congress of Representative Women to deliver an address entitled, "Women's Cause is One and Universal." Cooper said, "It is enough for me to know that while in the eyes of the highest tribunal in America, she was deemed no more than chattel, an irresponsible thing, a dull block to be drawn hither or thither at the volition of an owner. It is enough for me to know that the Afro-American woman maintained ideals of womanhood unshamed by any ever conceived." Cooper illustrates how enslaved women maintained their humanity in the most inhuman of circumstances, through the care of family, family of blood and family of circumstance. Caring for others and encouraging their well-being took the form of resistance in slavery, refusing to let go of human warmth and tenderness, loving and grieving the loss of loved ones. And in the aftermath of slavery, for our country to heal, Cooper held up again the importance of loving and grieving. Cooper lifted up the importance of supporting and nurturing one another as the human beings we are. She called for women's work to become the work of all, comforting one another, holding one another as we heal, believing in and nurturing the promise of others. This, Cooper argued, must become the work of all people. No longer the burden and joy alone of women. May we take Julia Anna Cooper's wise words to heart. To live in a just world, women's work must become the work of all. Blessed be, amen.
Welcome. We're happy you're here with us today in this room or joining us remotely. We are pleased to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you personally following the service, so if you're visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up. Members, take note of guests seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both large print orders of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. Also, an elevator is located to the left of the entrance. If you would like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place it in the offering basket later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. The cards and offering envelopes are on the clipboards at the end of your row. Please begin passing them now. Visitors interested in hearing about how to become a member can talk to our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
I add my welcome to Amelia's. If you would like to learn more about the life of this congregation and how to experience what we offer in addition to our Sunday services, you can look through the back of your order of service or explore our website or subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, Currents. If you are visiting today, we invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea after the service and then head downstairs to the conference room where a longtime member can answer any questions you have and help you get to know us better. Yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Luna Rising, our congregation's annual celebration of women, girls, and those who identify with the feminine spirit. As part of this 10th anniversary programming, women and girls came together to do an art project that is on display today in Freeman Hall. Be sure to take a look at it when you go have coffee. I want to thank the organizers and participants of Luna Rising for keeping this meaningful and important event thriving for a decade. We are in our second year as a congregation of engaging in very intentional learning about systemic injustice. And part of that learning has been about listening to the experience of people whose lives are most affected by oppression, to learn how we can follow their lead and guidance as to how, as a congregation, we can do the work of justice in Charlotte. So as part of this process, our racial and environmental engagement groups have been seeking such partners to lead us in this work. And I'm delighted to say that they have exciting progress to share with us. So please do all that you can to come next Sunday, March 10th. Our minister, Jay Leach, will lead our Sunday services with members of our intersectional justice team and leaders from those engagement groups. They'll present the larger context of this and next steps, and there will be an opportunity after each service to hear more about specific actions and to engage with the intersectional justice team. The mission of our congregation is to discover deeper spiritual meaning, nurture loving community, and partner in the work of justice. Always in the midst of seeking spiritual meaning and working for justice, our prayer is that together we can nurture a loving community here. A community able to make each of us feel held and seen and cared for in our times of celebration and our times of need. We hold Brenda and Lloyd Dillon in our hearts and prayers in Brenda's time of hospitalization. We hold Sean McCaffrey, son of Katie Ridenour, in our hearts and prayers as he recovers from a recent hospitalization. We hold Rob, Marcy, and Michael Kelly in our hearts and prayers during the hospitalization of Rob's father. Whatever you carry on your mind or heart this morning, may you feel held by this community. If there is a joy or sorrow or remembrance you are carrying that feels particularly meaningful, later in the service, when the offering baskets are being passed and the music is being played, you're welcome, member and visitor alike, to come forward and light a candle in silence.
As we give to this church, we are nurturing the people and programs in it. We will now give and receive our offering.
Would you be with me in meditation and prayer, breathing more deeply and calling on the source of your hope? To be nurturing is to bring food and water to someone who is sick, taking their temperature every few hours, reading a favorite book for the 100th time, mixing bitter medicine with something sweet, staying awake until your eyes feel dry and heavy in case they need you. To nurture is to pace the floor, first with a broom and then a mop. Clear away clutter, scrub at stains and grit so others can go about the business of their day without coming into much contact with filth or grime or unpleasant smells. To be nurturing is to be firm and yet gentle, not looking away from a wound that is presented to you, washing away the blood, cleaning away the threat of infection, though it stings and there is protest, adding pressure but just enough, then patiently wrapping the clean, soft bandage round and round. To be nurturing is to sit patiently with a frustrated child who cannot remember how to spell a word, insisting that they sound it out before you give them the answer. Nurturing is boiling water, chopping vegetables, stirring, filling a room with warmth and familiar smells. It's sitting vigil with people whose bodies or minds are failing them, mending what is torn, folding laundry, soothing someone else's fever or nightmare with a cool cloth or loving words. I invite you to reflect in silence on the ways that you have nurtured others. May we commit anew to the calling that belongs to all of us in the work of love. Amen. her 1893 address to the World's Congress of Representative Women, Julia Anna Cooper said, "Let woman's claim be as broad in the concrete as in the abstract. We take our stand on the solidarity of humanity, the oneness of life.
We take our stand on the unnaturalness and injustice of all special favoritisms, whether of sex, race, country, or condition.
If one link in the chain breaks, the chain is broken. A bridge is no stronger than its weakest part, and a cause is not worthier than its weakest element.
Not till race, color, sex, and condition are seen as the accidents and not the substance of life. Not till the universal title of humanity to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is conceded to be inalienable to all.
Not till then is women's lesson taught and women's cause won, not the white woman's, nor the black woman's, not the red woman's.
But the cause of every being who has writhed silently under a mighty wrong. Please be seated.